Thank you everyone for coming today. Today we've got Tori, special guest from Griffith. And she's in her last year in her PhD and working on social marketing and messaging. And today she's going to share about the work, how we can empower community to take actions to protect homes in Southeast Queensland. Yeah.
Wonderful. So I'll introduce myself again to those who are online. I'm Tori Seydel. I'm from social marketing at Griffith from Griffith University. So for those of you who don't know what social marketing is, don't worry. I will explain it to you and give you a rundown of just what it is. We are not just social media. And I'll be talking to you about our Koala threat mitigation project that we have been doing with the local city councils across Southeast Queensland, as well as the Department of Environment and Science. So we were brought on board to engage community in koala conservation actions. So social marketing is essentially designing programs for social good and for social outcomes. We use research, we use marketing techniques, we use behavioural economics, we use other techniques to develop these programs that are sustainable and engage community to take actions that we want them to take. At Social Marketing at Griffith, we developed a CBE process, which is co-design, build and engage. So we design programs that are for people. Yes, are we on board with where I am at and what I do? Excellent. So the first step is co-create. We ensure that programs are designed for people. We bring stakeholders together, we talk to them about what they want to see, what they need, and we take those ideas on board to build programs. We then bring together different stakeholders. So this includes the community we're trying to design with. This includes other councils, governments, any community groups that have a vested interest, anyone that is involved in the topic that we're trying to look at, we bring on board. We build these partnerships to help us ensure that we actually reach and engage people, and that it is a sustainable program for the future, and that we have funding to make sure that it can continue. And lastly, we engage. So we go out and we take everything we've learned with our partners and we engage the community. We tell them what we want from them, what they need to know, and how they can do it. This is an iterative process. So after the engage, you can also go back to the co-create, and it's a process that can just keep going as time rolls on. So now the Koala threat mitigation project. How it all started. We started our work in Redlands City Council. We started evaluating their koala awareness campaigns. So I'm not sure if you're aware, but Redlands City Council has been doing a lot in the koala conservation space. They do community campaigns, they do a lot of science work, habitat restoration, koala tracking, and they've been really innovative in their work. They brought us on board to start evaluating their engagement campaign. And so over time, we would evaluate their breeding season campaign, and you can see that there's been a shift from awareness to actions to focusing on actions. And as a result, people's awareness of the key causes of koala deaths has gone up quite considerably. And after the action-orientated messages came in, we can see conservation actions participated in increased as well. So we have been evaluating and learning from Redlands City Council for 5 years now. We took all that information on board and we partnered with the Department of Environment and Science to engage community. So our project is actually broken up into two parts. We have a koala awareness part, which is where we're engaging people in koala conservation actions, and our project Leave It, which is a dog training program to help prevent wildlife attacks. So I'm going to talk about what we've done in these areas and discuss them a little bit more. So before we jumped into this project, we started our process at co-create. We went and looked at all the evidence we had. So we did an evidence review of what has been employed across city councils and any other research that had been done. We conducted surveys with community to see where each of these regions was sitting in terms of their attitudes, their actions towards koala conservation, and what we could focus on in the future. We had Koala Hospital data to see where the big issues were. Was it car strikes in Toowoomba? Was it dog attacks in Brisbane? We had the data to figure that out. We also met with all the local government areas. So we met the councils, we brought them together and we asked them what they needed, what materials, what support, what was missing for them to be implementing any sort of koala conservation campaign. And lastly, we ran co-design sessions with people in these city council areas. So we brought them together, we showed them some ideas, we got them to design ideas that they wanted to see and where they wanted these implemented. And then we moved on to our koala awareness campaign. So the key messages that people told us that they wanted to know when breeding season was and reminding to slow down. They wanted to know what they could do in their own homes. So things like pool escapes or fence escapes. They wanted to know where they could report koala sightings if they needed to, and also make them more aware that dogs are actually an impact to koalas. That was something people didn't actually realise. So this is an example. I'll give you some in-depth detail here. So this is the sick and injured koala. After our surveys and our co-design sessions, what we found out was that people don't know what a sick koala looks like. I had a person in the Gold Coast session tell me that they thought that koalas just had wet, dirty bums. That's just what they were supposed to look like. She had no idea that that is what a sick koala was. And she's like, okay, but if I can identify a sick koala, who do I call? Across Southeast Queensland, there are so many different numbers you can call in different council areas. And so we had to try and cater this to each area. So 1300 animal RSPCA is here. It's Wildcare, which works for areas like Sunshine Coast. Redlands City Council has their own hospital number. So we needed to target these numbers to the specific areas. Some other resources that we developed from the co-designs to engage community was we have a social media channel called Wildlife Watcher. This shares information about koalas during peak periods, so breeding season. We also talk about other people in the community doing great work, like carers, and we link community with these people. We also developed a trivia app to engage kids and other community members in some basic koala knowledge. You can also find this at Lone Pine Koala Sanctuary up in, where is that? Big Tree Pocket, thank you. And we also developed a website, which was a hub to find resources, information, and also ways that they can help. We also have a number of community events that we've been running. So you can see we're doing a lot to get out there and engage with community, to get them aware of what we're doing and interact with other people that are doing this work. So we've attended community events, we've hosted some koala forums. We have one coming up in Lockyer Valley. So we've done, obviously Ipswich, Brisbane, we have Lockyer Valley coming up soon, and then we're doing Somerset. So we're going around and we're bringing together people in these communities to talk about their work and their koala conservation to their community members. And lastly, we've done the launch at Lone Pine. Now I will go back and talk about how we got there, but now for Leave It. So Leave It was also developed with Redlands City Council. This work started back in 2018. We essentially wanted to get dog owners to train their dogs in wildlife aversion. Wildlife aversion is a skill. Leave it, so you can tell your dog to stop and they will come back. In order to do this, there are other key dog skills that you need. You need the basic skills of sit, stay, come back when called, and heel. And so to do this, we developed, again, a set of resources to engage community. We have a website that has dog training resources and tips that you can do at home yourself. So we hired someone down from Sydney to come up and help film videos to teach people how to do wildlife aversion. We do online training events, we do in-person events, and we have a monthly newsletter. We also developed a bunch of educational resources so city councils can take these flyers, links to the website, and we also have videos online that people again can follow and train their dogs at home. And the big thing we've done also is we developed a dog training app. So this app is people can download, it's handy, it's on your phone, it gives you step-by-step tips, it has an inbuilt clicker to help reinforce behaviours, and you master one step and then you move on. So it's a really handy tool to get people to use, and we've already had, I think, about 1,500 downloads of this app that has been used across Southeast Queensland. We've also run events for this. So our big one is Dogfest. We've done Dogfest recently in Griffith, actually, a couple of months ago. We've done Redlands, we've done Logan and Ipswich. We also run dog training events out at Moreton Bay, so Pets in Public Places, where people come and it's an in-person short training event. We do live streaming, and we've done wildlife avoidance training. So again, we paid a trainer to come up and train dog trainers. We got them to train dog trainers in wildlife aversion, so they can then embed it into their normal training practice. And so now we have had 60 dog trainers trained in wildlife aversion who are embedding that in their normal training practices and spreading that across the community. And again, big one, Dogfest. We have over 4,000 people attend in Brisbane, our biggest one yet. So again, this event is focused on dog training and wildlife avoidance. We have training sessions, and it's also just a fun day for people to bring their dogs along. So like I said, this is an iterative process, and how we got to all of that was a very long, complicated journey. So we started with our campaigns, but as we went, we kept co-creating with the community. We listened to what they were telling us. So there's feedback from our koala forums. People loved it. It was a way for them to see what was happening in their community, engage with people in that space, and also learn about what else they could do. We listened on social media on what people wanted to see, not just comments, but what were they engaging with? People love videos of real koalas and seeing them in their community. They like to know that they're there, and especially if the koala has a name. So we kept listening and we kept evolving with what people wanted. But on top of that, like I said, we were running community surveys. So we had things like psychographic questions, we had attitudes, their beliefs, what they were actually participating in, and we took all this information and had a look at it on a council by council area. So as you can see, this is an example of Toowoomba, where we compare Toowoomba to the rest of Southeast Queensland, and we did this for all council areas. So this is a really good way for us to find out where different council areas are sitting and what we can do in those areas that suits them. So do they need more information? Yeah, I know how to report a koala sighting. They're lower than the rest of Southeast Queensland. So then we can go to the council and we can tell them, this is what your community is lacking, and this is what we can do to help that. Like I said, listening, learning, and adjusting. So we also take it as a whole, what the whole of Southeast Queensland is doing. So you can see it's not always positive. So attitudes towards koalas increases over time. Their perceived ability to help koalas increased, but sometimes their knowledge is decreasing. So we listen and we adapt. It's an iterative process. To keep this effective and to keep people engaged, we need to listen and adapt. We also have a dashboard that all councils can access. This is last year's data because we're currently collecting our surveys now to get more information. But this is the dashboard that councils can hop on. They can see an overall result of South East Queensland, and then they can also select their own council area and have a look at the data themselves that we have collected. So then they can also have a look and see what else they could be doing themselves. So it is really important for us to establish these relationships with councils. That's probably the biggest one that we've had to do, is establish these partnerships, connecting councils, connecting community groups, connecting rescues. There are so many people out there doing work on koala conservation and not talking about it enough to get community involved. And we want to bring all these people together. We don't want to remake the wheel. We don't want to take over. We just want to connect people together. There are so many people doing this. So what's next for us? We have our 2023 breeding season campaign coming up. We have been working again with these councils to develop the breeding season campaign that suits their community. We have the messages, the core messages that community want to see, and we can work with them to implement these messages how they want. So for example, this here was from Logan. While they liked our breeding season campaign, it just doesn't fit with their brand. The same with Lockyer Valley. They like the messages, but their brand that they put out on social media and in the community is they like real images. Not a problem. Easy. We'll take those images of koala carers with their koalas and we can put our messages there. We adapt and we listen to fit the needs of our clients and the community. That's what we're here to do. So I think this season we have Gold Coast City Council on board, we have Logan City Council on board, we have Lockyer Valley, we have Somerset, we have, trying to go through all the councils in my head, there's 12 of them. So there's so many to work with, but we do implement these with councils. And again, we'll be continuing our community events, we'll be continuing our community engagement, we're continuing to listen to what the people are telling us. And I don't just mean telling us what they're showing us. We need to listen to our community. And then it's the end.
Timing. Any questions? Here?
Yes.
For building relationships with councils, do you find that tricky over time because there seems to be a high turnover in like government staff?
What we found was difficult in building relationships with councils was even building a relationship to start with. In our first year of the project, we had one council that was like, yes, let's work together. And so we did work with them and we got excellent results. And so that helped to bring other councils on board. But again, there is a high turnover, but we have more than one contact within the council. So we ensure that we're talking to the marketing team as well as their environment team so that if something does happen, we have at least a couple of contacts there. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation. So you've covered a lot of what worked in terms of like protecting koalas and changing behaviors to protect koalas. But I wanted to know a little bit more about what you found didn't work in these campaigns. Have you been finding out, has there been some strategies that simply don't work or some messaging that doesn't deliver the intended effects, such that as conservationists we can learn from also not just success but also from mistakes that are potentially being done and social positive marketing.
Yeah. Okay. So if we have a look here, so we developed this sort of design and messaging with community, but it doesn't always land with community. I was having this discussion with you before, is that it's a split. If this sort of messaging is a bit of a a preference. So a lot of people do like it because it's different. It's interesting, it grabs their attentions, and it's also great to start a conversation with kids. But some people will look at that and be like, no, that's not taking this issue seriously. Who's going to listen to this? It's kind of making it a bit of a joke. So we did find that, and so to counteract that, that's where we came up with the social media channels. So while councils can pick this if they want, they can also pick real images and real people. So again, it's a preference thing, and you're going to always find that with messages is that it's not always going to land, and you just got to take that on board. And it's okay if it does not, even though it might hurt a little, it's okay, but you have to listen to what people are telling you and what they're reacting to. And you can't always get it right. If you do it 1 year, that's not what social marketing is about. We like a sustainable program. And so running this for 1 year isn't going to land. Like you can see that in Redlands, that this has been a consistent thing over time, and it's consistently increasing people's knowledge and awareness. So it has to be a sustainable thing. Yes.
Thanks for great presentation. Just a quick question on the program that you are going on, and as mentioned just now, it's an ongoing program for social marketing. Is there a projected end point that you'll be like, all right, we have done really great job in, say, Redland City, and we'll move on to focus on other species or other areas, for example?
I would absolutely love to focus on other species or areas, but this work is funded by DES and the councils. Our aim is that we do make ourselves obsolete in this space, which sounds a little bit silly when you say it like that. But that is our goal as a centre, is that we're here to try and help set up a sustainable program, but we don't want to be the ones running it forever. That's not sustainable. We want the people in community and the councils to be running it. So while there is not an end date yet, we are hoping to get a funding cycle from the government and the city councils to come in so they can fund this themselves. If they need, we can come back in and reevaluate and make changes, but that is our goal, is to fund us out of it. Sounds silly.
And thank you, Tori, for that question. So you mentioned you created the dashboards, right, for the council to download the data. So how often you do the survey again? So because people's attitudes or knowledge may changing.
Yes.
So how often you update those information?
Okay, so that survey happens yearly. So we kind of use it as a longitudinal data set. So in the first year, we did a pre and a post over the 1 year, and then now it's a yearly thing with the year before serving as like the pre and post. So the dashboard we're currently collecting now, so the dashboard will get updated with this new data once we've collected it and analysed it, and it does take a bit of effort to get it put up into the dashboard. And I think we're also migrating to a different platform for it.
And how you encourage people to fill the service? So for example, maybe the people you are interested in Koala already, so they're more willing to fill the survey. But how to engage people, for example, they drive so fast, they don't care. They never fill the survey.
Yeah, no, I think that is one of the issues with surveys, is that of really people that are interested in the topic are more likely to fill it out. We do know that with surveys, it is a limitation. So we know, we're aware that this sort of information is skewed. And so yes, while they may have positive attitudes, we're also actually checking people's actual knowledge as well. So we kind of use that as a comparison. It's like, while they may be very positive about koalas, that's fine. We actually make them go through a set of pictures and identify what a healthy koala, or a sick koala looks like. So we're actually measuring their actual ability. And like I said, the surveys aren't our only data point. So we do try and pull data from multiple spaces to try and counteract the fact that the people that are filling out the survey probably have a vested interest in koalas, but that is not true because I have also seen the survey and I have seen some quite funny comments from people being like, no one cares about koalas. Why are we even trying to save them? So there are some people that go through the whole survey and fill it out and actually do not care about them. So interesting.
Nothing at the moment. I'll just put them again.
And do you have more questions? Yeah, and also you mentioned like different council, they got different branding. For example, I like yellow, well, my council like red.
Yes.
And my, I like this kind of designing, graphic designing, and some like real image. So do you think anybody done any real research looking into different kind of pictures and they send to community to see which one people actually like or grab their attention?
Yes. No, we have. While we can do as much research as we want into that, councils are still bound by their branding guidelines and rarely will adapt that if their logo is going on there. So a way that we do get around that is by having our logo and the Department of Environment and Science. If they're really interested in this sort of design, that is a way we worked around that, where we have our branding and the Department of Environment and Science, so they can do that.
It's more like they choose what they like, but maybe it's not necessarily they know how the community and region
Yes.
will be like. So it could be a gap.
Yes, which is
Yeah.
why we also do our own.
Yeah.
So we also have, that's why we have the social media and we have the resources and we also have printouts and we go to these events. Because while it's the same messaging as the councils, it's also in the style that we know that people are engaging with.
Just like the driver, although you put up a sign to say Koala breeding season, they said, oh, I drive here every day, and that's the one. You just ignore.
Yes,
Right. They might
Yeah,
just
no.
do drive same speed.
yes, which is a problem that you face with driving behaviours, is that you rarely see koalas on the road. Have any of you seen a koala crossing the road when you've been driving? Have you seen a wallaby when you've been driving? No? Birds?
Yeah.
Yeah, so there are certain types of wildlife that people would probably respond to more, given that driving is such a considered behaviour of something we do every day. But not seeing a koala on the road definitely impacts the message of slowing down. Flashing signs help with that.
Sorry, another question, regarding, I mean, you obviously work with a lot of community groups and also all the councils in the Southeast Queensland. Most of these actions or projects that you do, is it more ground up as a community lead and then the council respond, or is the council is more of a top down from the council policy, or when you talk to them, they want to put out the messaging and the community adopt? What's the percentage in this messaging and all the different groups?
When the project started, and we tried to go through councils and we were getting knocked back, we switched and went through community groups. They're much more willing to take on resources that are pre-developed and made, because, well, they don't have the resources to do that themselves a lot of the time. So it's really easy for them to have that. So there are community groups that are putting out our resources for us, but we also are trying to get the councils involved to share this campaign themselves. So we're sort of taking it from every angle possible to make sure that we can engage the community and all different aspects of the community, because not everyone cares about their council's campaigns. They do that many different campaigns and messages throughout the year that sometimes you just sort of switch them off. But you might be involved with different community groups or wildlife groups. And so I think at the moment, our biggest percentage was from community groups. But now that we're getting more councils involved, it's probably going to be a little bit council heavy.
Got a comment and an invitation from Eric from Sarah. I don't know if you know Eric Vanderdoes.
Oh no.
He said, thanks, Tori. I like the fact that you said your goal is to put yourself out of business. Not that I want to see you out of business, but it's a good way of having an end goal. And he says, can you please flick me an email when you get a chance I'd like to talk about some contacts in some of your community days. So I've got his email address, so I'll give it to you.
Wonderful, thank you, Eric. Yes.
So, yeah, it's really interesting, thank you. I'm not super familiar with how Australian society is structured and council wise. So my question is about scale, was what do you think about the national level scale or state level scale versus this council level, or is that something that you're is looking at all?
Originally, the Department of Environment and Science, which is the Queensland state government level, they wanted this to be a consistent campaign across Southeast Queensland, and they wanted Southeast Queensland in particular because it has the highest population of wild koalas. But now that we've established that councils have their own branding and their own styles, we're trying to at least keep the messages consistent while the style may not have to be consistent. That's why we're very happy to be working with these new councils and doing the campaign the way they want, because it's also still the same core message. And so while we may be moving around Southeast Queensland, which I don't know if a lot of you do cross between different council areas. I know I do cross a few council areas. It's at least the core message is still the same, which is what the Department of Environment was aiming for, and science was aiming for. Yeah. But hopefully national would be, that could also involve a lot of adaptations and changes, but it's definitely something that we have been working towards, getting other places like New South Wales and the ACT involved, but they are also doing a lot of work of their own.
We have a request online. Somebody's asking for a copy of your slides.
Oh, yeah,
Okay, so that's.
yeah, can do that.
Yeah.
Any more questions? Yeah, then we can find Tori's email, right, on the, I think on the link of the talk. So, or if anybody have any more questions, you can reach me as well, I'm always here.
If you think of any more questions, shoot me an email.
Then that's, thank you. Thank you.